He didn't just leave me sitting alone in a fancy restaurant for 2 endless hours. He sent me a message so cruel, it felt like my heart shattered into pieces. I had believed this would be the date that changed my life, but instead, it opened a different door. One where I had to face the bitter truth about love, betrayal, and an unexpected chance I never saw coming. Little did I know that painful moment would become the very beginning of everything beautiful that was about to unfold. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection as though it held the answers to all my unspoken questions. Tonight wasn't just another date. It was supposed to be the date, the one that could change everything. I carefully smoothed the soft blue dress I had chosen, one that felt feminine without being too flashy, and adjusted the delicate necklace my grandmother had given me years ago. My hands trembled slightly as I applied my lipstick, a deep rose shade that made me feel bolder than I actually was. For weeks, I'd been talking to Eric online. He was charming, attentive, and seemed to genuinely understand me. After a string of heartbreaks and disappointments, meeting someone like him felt almost too good to be true. I told myself I deserved this, that it was okay to hope again. Tonight, I wasn't just meeting a man. I was stepping into the possibility of a future I'd been too afraid to dream of. My small apartment felt warmer than usual, almost suffocating as I gathered my purse and checked my phone for the 10th time. No new messages. That was fine. He had already confirmed earlier. I glanced at the clock and felt a flutter in my chest. If I left now, I'd arrive a little early, just enough to catch my breath before he arrived. As I locked the door behind me, I imagined how the evening might unfold. Laughter over candlelight, the gentle clinking of wine glasses, maybe even a stolen kiss outside beneath the glow of the street lamp. It had been so long since I'd allowed myself to believe in something like this. I didn't know it then, but those fragile hopes would soon be shattered in ways I couldn't have imagined, and my life would never be the same again. The city lights shimmered like scattered jewels as I made my way to the restaurant. My heels clicked against the pavement, each step echoing my excitement, and a hint of nerves I couldn't quite shake. When I reached the entrance, a rush of warm air and the soft hum of conversation greeted me. The place was even more beautiful than I had imagined. Tall windows draped with sheer curtains, golden lights spilling across polished tables, and a subtle scent of rosemary and roasted garlic lingering in the air. A host with a perfect smile greeted me, and I gave him Eric's name. My voice trembled slightly, but he didn't seem to notice as he led me to a small table by the window. "He'll be right with you," he said, placing a menu neatly in front of me. I sat down, smoothing my dress over my knees, glancing around at the couples laughing and leaning close to one another. The restaurant was alive with warmth and intimacy, a stark contrast to the hollow pit forming in my stomach. I checked my phone. No new messages. I told myself he was probably parking his car, maybe just running a few minutes late. 10 minutes passed, then 20. I tried to focus on the menu, tracing the descriptions of dishes I couldn't even pronounce, but the words blurred together. A waiter came by to ask if I wanted to order a drink, and I forced a smile, declining politely. As the minutes ticked by, my confidence began to unravel. I shifted in my chair, painfully aware of how alone I must have looked. The clinking of glasses and soft laughter around me now felt mocking, as if the entire room could see my growing embarrassment. Still, I waited. Because what else could I do but believe he would walk through that door any second now? At exactly 40 minutes past the hour, my hope began to flicker like a candle in a storm. I stared at the entrance, silently willing Eric to appear, each person who walked through the door making my heart lurch before crashing back into disappointment. My phone sat on the table beside my untouched water glass, the screen dark and unyielding. I finally gathered the courage to call him. My hand trembled as I tapped his name, holding the phone to my ear while my other hand clutched at the napkin in my lap. It rang once, twice, 3 times, and then went straight to voicemail. That's when it happened. A sharp buzz startled me, and I glanced down to see his name flashing across the screen. Relief surged for a brief, glorious second, until I opened the message. "This was a mistake. I don't date single moms. I only agreed to meet you because you seemed desperate, and I felt sorry for you. Don't text me again." The words sliced through me like a blade. For a moment, the restaurant noise faded into a low, distorted hum, like I was underwater. My breath caught in my throat, my vision blurring as tears burned at the corners of my eyes. Around me, the world went on as if nothing had happened. Couples laughed, glasses clinked, forks scraped against porcelain plates. The golden lights that had seemed so warm earlier now felt harsh and unkind, spotlighting my humiliation for everyone to see. I imagined strangers whispering, "Look at her, all dressed up with nowhere to go." I set the phone down carefully, afraid my shaking hands might betray me further. My chest ached with a mixture of heartbreak and rage, but more than anything, shame. I felt exposed, as if my most vulnerable self had been put on display and mocked. I wanted to disappear, to sink through the floor and vanish rather than sit there another second. But my legs wouldn't move. I could only sit frozen, staring at the cruel words glowing on my phone screen as my perfect evening crumbled into dust before my eyes. Across the room, at a larger table near the back, Gavin Montgomery lifted his glass of water and stole another glance toward the woman sitting alone by the window. She'd been there since before he and his 5-year-old daughter arrived, her posture growing tenser as the evening wore on. Gavin wasn't one to meddle in strangers' affairs, but something about her expression caught him, a mixture of quiet dignity and raw devastation she was trying desperately to hide. Maya, his daughter, tugged on his sleeve, drawing his attention back for a moment. "Daddy, can we get dessert?" she asked, her wide brown eyes full of hope. He smiled softly and nodded, signaling to the waiter. As Maya flipped through the dessert menu with childish excitement, Gavin's gaze drifted back to the woman. She looked down at her phone, shoulders stiff, face pale. Even from across the room, Gavin could sense the crushing weight of whatever message she'd just read. A protective instinct stirred within him, the same one that always rose when Maya was hurt or frightened. The waiter returned, setting down Maya's chocolate mousse and the check. Gavin thanked him, his mind already turning over a plan. He didn't want to embarrass the woman further, but he also couldn't bear to watch her walk out of here humiliated, forced to pay for a dinner she never shared. Quietly, he flagged the waiter again. "Add her table to my bill," Gavin murmured. "Don't tell her who covered it." As Maya dug into her dessert, oblivious to the small act unfolding, Gavin glanced back one last time. The woman still sat motionless, trying to collect herself, unaware that someone had silently chosen to stand in her corner. A stranger who had decided, in that fleeting moment, to offer her a shred of kindness when she needed it most. I sat there, motionless, my fingers locked tightly around my phone, as if holding it would somehow undo the words burned into my mind. The room had begun to blur. The soft music, the gentle clinking of glasses, even the low hum of laughter all seemed far away. My throat felt tight, my body frozen between wanting to run and not knowing where to go. Then a shadow fell across the table. The waiter stood beside me, holding a folded slip of paper. "Ma'am, whenever you're ready," he said kindly, placing the check down. The blood rushed to my face so fast I felt dizzy. Paying for a dinner I hadn't even shared felt like the final insult. I fumbled for my purse with trembling hands, wishing I could just vanish into thin air. As I opened my wallet, the waiter leaned slightly closer and gave a small, reassuring smile. "It's been taken care of," he said softly. I blinked, unsure I'd heard him right. "What do you mean?" "Your bill has already been paid," he explained, glancing toward the back of the room. "The gentleman requested to remain anonymous." My lips parted in surprise, a dozen questions rushing to my mind. Who would do that? Why? I looked around, but no one met my gaze. The restaurant continued on as if nothing unusual had happened. Relief and gratitude tangled with confusion inside me. Whoever had done this hadn't wanted to humiliate me further or make me feel indebted. They'd simply given me a way to leave with my head held a little higher. I stood, gathering my things carefully, and walked toward the exit. My heart was still aching, but at least I could leave this place with a small piece of dignity intact. The night air was cool as I stepped out of the restaurant, wrapping my arms around myself as if that could shield me from the sting of humiliation. My heels clicked against the sidewalk, each step pulling me further from the suffocating warmth of the dining room. I just needed to get home, crawl under my blankets, and pretend this night had never happened. "Excuse me," a gentle voice said behind me. I turned, startled, to see a tall man with dark, neatly styled hair standing a few feet away. Beside him was a little girl holding a small, stuffed bunny, her curious eyes peeking up at me. "You dropped this," he said, holding out a silk scarf I hadn't even realized I'd lost. His voice was calm, steady, almost soothing against the chaos still swirling inside my chest. "Oh, thank you." My voice was barely above a whisper. The little girl gave me a shy smile. "Hi," she said softly, clutching her bunny tighter. "Hi there," I managed, forcing a small smile. The man studied me for a moment, his expression unreadable but kind. "Rough night?" he asked, his tone casual, like he was giving me the option to answer or let it pass. I hesitated, then nodded slightly. "Something like that." He didn't press further. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and handed me a small, elegant card. "If you ever need help, or just someone to point you toward a decent coffee shop, call me." I glanced down at the card. Gavin Montgomery. No title, no explanation. "Thank you," I said, unsure why a stranger's gesture felt so comforting. "Take care of yourself," he said simply before guiding the little girl away, leaving me standing there, clutching the card as though it were a lifeline I hadn't realized I needed. A few days passed, and I tried to push the memory of that disastrous night to the back of my mind. Work kept me busy, and Maya's tiny stuffed bunny card, Gavin's card, sat untouched on my nightstand. I told myself I wouldn't call. It wasn't like he owed me anything. He had been kind, yes, but he was still a stranger. That Saturday morning, I ducked into a small cafe near the park, desperate for caffeine and a moment to myself. The place was bustling, the smell of fresh pastries mingling with roasted coffee beans. I waited in line, scrolling through my phone, when I realized the line behind me had grown long. A sharp voice startled me. "Miss, you're holding up the line," the barista snapped, clearly frazzled by the weekend rush. My cheeks flushed. I'm sorry," I stammered, fumbling with my card. In my panic, it slipped from my hand and fell to the floor, sliding beneath the counter. Before I could crouch down to grab it, a calm, familiar voice cut through the noise. "Here, I've got it." I looked up, and there he was, Gavin, holding out my card with a steady hand and an easy smile. Maya clung to his other hand, her eyes lighting up when she saw me. "Clara, right?" he said, his tone warm but casual, as if we weren't two near strangers who'd crossed paths under painfully awkward circumstances. "Yes," I breathed, both surprised and relieved. The barista softened immediately at Gavin's presence, her irritation vanishing. Gavin ordered for all of us without missing a beat and guided me toward an open table. "You looked like you could use a rescue," he said lightly. For the first time in days, I laughed. A small, shaky sound, realizing just how much I had needed one. A week later, my phone buzzed with an unexpected message. Gavin. I hadn't realized he even had my number, but then I remembered the tiny card he'd given me outside the restaurant. "Community workshop at my center tomorrow morning," the text read. "Bring kids if you know any, or just bring yourself. No pressure." I stared at it for a long moment, my thumb hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to say no, to keep this safe distance I'd built around my heart. But another part of me, the part that had been lonely for far too long, whispered that maybe it was okay to show up. The next morning, I found myself walking into a bright, airy community space filled with laughter and the chaotic hum of children. Gavin stood near the front, sleeves rolled up, talking to a group of volunteers. Even in the casual setting, he radiated a quiet authority that made people listen. When he saw me, his face broke into a genuine smile. "You came," he said simply, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I nodded, suddenly self-conscious. I wasn't sure if I'd be in the way. "You could never be in the way here," he said warmly. As the workshop began, I watched Gavin move through the room, guiding activities and encouraging everyone, adults and kids alike. He wasn't just leading, He was connecting, making each person feel seen. It was beautiful in a way that surprised me. At one point, he handed me a box of art supplies. "Think you can help with the painting station?" I smiled, rolling up my sleeves. "I'll try." By the end of the morning, my hands were covered in paint and my heart felt lighter than it had in months. Seeing Gavin in his element made me realize he wasn't just a good man. He was building something meaningful, and for the first time, I wanted to be part of it. The following weekend, Gavin invited me and Maya to join him at the library for the children's story hour. It felt simple, safe, no pressure, just books and laughter. Still, my heart thudded as I walked through the tall glass doors, wondering if I was getting too close to a world that wasn't mine. Maya spotted me first. "Clara!" she squealed, rushing over with her bunny clutched in one hand. Her joy was so pure it melted every ounce of hesitation in me. I knelt to hug her, breathing in the sweet scent of her shampoo and the faint trace of crayons on her sweater. "She's been talking about you all morning," Gavin said as he approached, a soft smile tugging at his lips. He carried a stack of picture books under one arm, looking every bit the devoted father. We settled on the carpet in the children's section, surrounded by shelves painted in bright colors. The librarian began reading aloud, her voice animated as the kids giggled and gasped. Maya leaned against me, completely absorbed in the story, her tiny fingers curling into the fabric of my sleeve. When the story ended, Maya threw her arms around my neck and buried her face against me. In a soft, sleepy whisper, she murmured, "She smells like Nana." The words pierced my heart. I froze, caught between surprise and emotion. Gavin's eyes widened, and for a brief moment, something unspoken passed between us. Grief, tenderness, longing. I'm sorry," I whispered, unsure if I'd somehow crossed a line. But Gavin shook his head gently. "Don't apologize," he said, his voice rough. "My mother used to read to her here. It's a good memory." I hugged Maya tighter, my throat aching. In that instant, I wasn't just a visitor in their lives. I was part of a fragile, healing connection, one I hadn't realized how deeply I wanted until now. Sunlight streamed gently through Gavin's kitchen windows, bathing the room in a soft, golden glow. The storm of worry from last night had passed, replaced by the calm hush of a new day. I stood at the counter, pouring orange juice into 3 mismatched glasses, listening to the faint sizzling of bacon in the pan. Behind me, Maya's laughter rang out like a tiny bell as she sat on a stool, swinging her feet while hugging her stuffed bunny. Her cheeks were no longer flushed, and her eyes sparkled with that same mischievous light I'd grown to adore. "Clara makes the best eggs," Maya announced proudly when Gavin walked in. He raised a brow at me, a hint of amusement playing at his lips. "Is that so? I might need to be the judge of that." I smiled, pretending to be focused on flipping the bacon so he wouldn't see how warm his teasing made me feel. The domesticity of it all, cooking breakfast while Maya chattered and Gavin leaned against the counter with a mug of coffee, felt almost surreal. For a fleeting moment, it was like we were a family. As we ate, the conversation flowed easily. Maya told a dramatic story about her favorite cartoon, complete with sound effects, and Gavin listened with patient affection. At one point, he reached over to tuck a stray lock of hair behind my ear, a small, tender gesture that sent my pulse racing. When breakfast ended, Gavin cleared his throat. "Thank you for last night," he said softly, his gaze steady on mine. "I don't think I could have handled it without you." I wanted to tell him that I'd never felt more certain about being exactly where I was supposed to be. Instead, I simply nodded, afraid that if I spoke, my voice would betray just how deeply I was already falling. The day slipped by in a blur after our cozy breakfast together. Gavin had errands to run, and Maya begged me to come along. We spent the afternoon wandering through a local farmer's market, sampling honey and fresh bread, laughing as Maya tried to convince Gavin to buy every colorful flower she saw. By evening, the sky had deepened into a rich indigo, dotted with early stars. Gavin offered to walk me home, Maya perched sleepily on his shoulders. The streets were quiet, just the soft rhythm of our footsteps echoing against the sidewalk. When we reached my apartment building, Gavin gently lowered Maya into my arms so she wouldn't wake. She stirred, but didn't open her eyes, her little head resting on my shoulder. Thank you, Gavin said softly, his voice carrying a weight of meaning. For today. For everything. I looked up at him, and for a moment, words felt completely inadequate. There was so much I wanted to say, about how they'd brought warmth back into my life, about how I hadn't realized how lonely I'd been until they came along. But all of it caught in my throat. As if sensing my struggle, Gavin reached out and took my free hand in his. His touch was steady, grounding, yet achingly tender. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. In that quiet moment, with Maya breathing softly between us, the world seemed to narrow down to just the three of us. When he finally let go, it was slow and reluctant, like a promise left hanging in the air. I stood at my doorway, watching them walk away, my heart pounding with something I dared not name. Not yet, not when everything felt so fragile and new. Over the next few days, everything between us felt beautifully natural. Maybe a little too natural. Gavin would stop by with Maya after work, or we'd all share dinner like it was the most ordinary thing in the world. Every time Maya laughed or reached for my hand, my heart swelled with a kind of joy I hadn't felt in years. But beneath that joy, a gnawing unease began to take root. One evening, as I watched Gavin tuck Maya into bed, the thought hit me like a cold splash of water. What if I'm just filling a void? I'd never asked much about Maya's mother. Gavin had only mentioned her once, his voice tight, his words clipped. I didn't push then, and he didn't offer more. But now, the silence around that subject felt deafening. Sitting alone in my apartment later, I stared at my reflection in the darkened window. Was I just a stand-in? A convenient solution for a grieving father and his lonely little girl? The idea twisted in my chest until it was hard to breathe. I thought of Maya calling me her Nana at the library, of Gavin's quiet glances, his touch that night outside my door. They meant so much to me. Maybe too much. By the time Gavin texted to ask if we wanted to meet at the park the next day, my decision was made. My hands shook as I typed back. I think I need some space for a while. He replied almost instantly. If that's what you need, I'll respect it. No questions, no pressure. Just acceptance. I sank back against the couch, tears stinging my eyes. His kindness made it even harder, because deep down I knew I wasn't pulling away because of him. I was pulling away because of my own fear. The notification came in the middle of an ordinary afternoon. I almost deleted it without reading, assuming it was spam. But then I saw the subject line. Congratulations, Portland State University Scholarship Award. My breath caught. For a moment, the room tilted, my heartbeat drumming in my ears. Hands trembling, I opened the email and read every word twice, just to be sure. It was real. The scholarship I'd applied for months ago, almost as a dare to myself, had been approved. Full tuition, living stipend, everything I'd need to finally finish my degree and step into a career I'd only dreamed of. A laugh bubbled out of me, half disbelieving, half ecstatic. I pressed a hand over my mouth, afraid I might actually scream. This is it, I thought. The chance I've been waiting for. But as quickly as the joy came, it collided with a crushing wave of dread. Portland wasn't just a different city. It was a whole new life, hundreds of miles away. Away from the cozy breakfasts, the library visits, the farmers' market strolls. Away from Gavin. Away from Maya. The image of Maya's sleepy smile, her small arms wrapped around my neck, made my throat ache. How could I leave her? How could I leave them? I sank into a chair, staring blankly at the acceptance email glowing on my laptop screen. This was supposed to be good news, the best news, and yet it felt like my heart was being split in two. For years, I'd been stuck in place, telling myself I'd move forward someday. Now, someday had arrived, and all I could think was how much it would cost me to take that step. I closed my laptop with shaking hands, knowing I couldn't avoid the truth. I had to tell Gavin. I asked Gavin to meet me at the park where we'd taken Maya so many times before. The evening was cool, a soft breeze rustling the leaves, but my palms were damp with sweat. I'd rehearsed what I wanted to say a dozen times, and every version still felt wrong. When he arrived, Maya ran ahead, squealing with delight as she darted toward the swings. Gavin followed at a slower pace, his warm brown eyes immediately locking onto mine. "You sounded serious on the phone," he said, his tone calm but concerned. I nodded, my throat tightening. "I got some news today." I pulled in a shaky breath. "I was accepted into a scholarship program at Portland State. Full ride, it's everything I've been working toward." His lips curved into a small, proud smile. "Clara, that's incredible." But my next words tumbled out too quickly. "It also means I'd have to move. It's not just a different city. It's hours away. I'd be gone for at least 2 years." The smile faded, replaced by quiet understanding. Gavin didn't speak right away, and the silence stretched, filling with my fear. "I didn't want you to think I was abandoning you or Maya," I blurted. "These past few months have meant more to me than I can explain. I don't know how to choose between my future and this." He stepped closer, his voice steady and gentle.
"Clara, you don't have to choose between us and your dreams. You've worked so hard for this. You deserve to go."
Tears blurred my vision. "But what about you? About Maya?" Gavin's jaw tightened, but his gaze was unwavering.
"We'll be okay. The only thing I want is for you to be happy, even if it means letting you go."
In that moment, my heart ached with both love and loss. Gavin wasn't just giving me permission to leave. He was showing me what real love looked like. The morning of my departure dawned gray and heavy, the kind of sky that felt like it understood what was about to happen. My suitcase sat by the door, neatly packed but unbearably final. Every zipper, every folded shirt felt like a step further away from the life I'd built with Gavin and Maya. When Gavin pulled into the driveway with Maya in the backseat, my heart lurched. Maya leapt out before the car had even fully stopped, her little arms wrapping tightly around my waist. "Don't go, Clara," she sobbed, her voice breaking. "Please don't go." I knelt down, hugging her as tightly as I could. "Sweetheart, I don't want to leave either," I whispered, my own tears spilling freely. "But I have to. This is something really important I need to do. For me and for us." Gavin stood a few steps away, his face carefully composed, though I could see the storm raging beneath the surface. He crouched beside Maya, gently prying her arms from around me.
"Hey, baby girl,"
he murmured.
"Remember what we talked about? Clara isn't leaving forever. She's going to learn and grow and chase her dreams, and one day, we'll see her again."
Maya sniffled, clutching her bunny to her chest.
"Promise?"
Gavin's voice cracked just slightly as he said,
"Promise."
I met his gaze over Maya's head. There were no guarantees between us, no vows or declarations, just a deep, wordless understanding. At the gate, I turned for one last look. Gavin had his arm around Maya, holding her close as she waved through her tears. I lifted my hand, my throat too tight to speak. As I walked away, the ache in my chest was almost unbearable. I wasn't sure what the future held, only that sometimes loving someone meant letting them go, and trusting they'd still be there when the time was right. Years passed in a blur of long nights, textbooks, and endless hours at the hospital. Somewhere along the way, the ache of leaving Gavin and Maya dulled into something quieter, though it never truly went away. I had poured myself into my studies, driven by the promise I'd made to myself, and in a way, to them. On the day of my graduation, I stood in my crisp white uniform, clutching my nursing certificate. I was no longer the uncertain girl who had once been abandoned in a fancy restaurant. I had become someone stronger, someone ready to step into her own life. One evening, during a late shift in the pediatric ward, I heard a familiar giggle echo down the hall. My heart stuttered. It couldn't be. Could it? I rounded the corner and froze. Maya was there, sitting on the exam table, her legs swinging as a nurse checked her temperature. She was taller now, her hair longer, but that mischievous spark in her eyes hadn't changed a bit. "Maya." My voice came out as a whisper. Her head snapped up, and for a heartbeat, we just stared at each other. Then she let out a delighted squeal and launched herself off the table, barreling into my arms. "Clara!" she cried, hugging me with the same fierce grip I remembered. I held her close, tears flooding my eyes.
It was as if no time had passed at all. And then, over Maya's shoulder, I saw him. Gavin stood in the doorway, watching us with an expression that made my breath catch. A mixture of shock, relief, and something deeper. Our eyes met, and in that single, wordless moment, I knew that whatever had been broken might just be mended again. A few days later, Gavin asked if Maya and I could join him somewhere special. His tone on the phone had been mysterious, almost shy, which only fueled my curiosity. When we pulled up to the address he'd given me, I gasped. The building was new, bright, and alive with the chatter of families and children. Banners fluttered outside the entrance, decorated with colorful handprints. A sign above the doors read, "Little Steps Community Center." "Little Steps?" I whispered, the name tugging at something deep inside me. Gavin smiled softly, pride shining in his eyes. "Come on, let me show you." Inside, the air buzzed with energy. Volunteers helped kids paint murals on the walls while others built block towers in a play area. There were classrooms filled with art supplies, shelves stacked with books, and a cozy corner where a young woman read stories aloud to a group of wide-eyed children. I turned to Gavin, overwhelmed. "This is incredible. You built this?" He nodded. "After you left, I kept thinking about that night when Maya was sick, when you sang to her and made everything feel safe. That moment stayed with me. It reminded me that every child deserves comfort, hope, and a chance to heal." My throat tightened as the memory came rushing back. "This place," he continued, gesturing around us, "is for kids and families who need a fresh start. And I named it Little Steps because that's how you helped Maya. One small, steady step at a time." Tears blurred my vision. Gavin hadn't just held on to our memories. He had turned them into something beautiful and lasting. As Maya darted off to join a group of giggling children, Gavin reached for my hand. "I wanted you to be the first to see it," he said quietly. In that moment, I knew he'd never stopped believing in us. Later that evening, Gavin suggested we go out for dinner to celebrate. I didn't think much of it until we pulled up to a familiar building. The same elegant restaurant where my entire life had once splintered apart. For a moment, I froze on the sidewalk, memories crashing over me. The golden light spilling from the windows, the gentle hum of laughter inside. It was all exactly as it had been that night. My heart pounded. "Gavin, why here?" I whispered. He gave me a steady, reassuring look and extended his hand. "Because this time, we rewrite the ending." With Maya skipping happily between us, we walked inside. A waiter led us to a table near the window. Not the same table as before, but close enough that I could still see the ghost of that younger version of myself sitting there, alone and humiliated. This time, though, everything was different. Gavin's presence beside me was warm and solid. Maya's giggles filling the space where my tears had once fallen. After dessert, Gavin stood, his movements calm but purposeful. My breath caught as he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Clara," he began, his voice steady but rich with emotion. "From the very first moment I saw you sitting here, I knew there was something extraordinary about you. You've brought light into my life, into Maya's life, in ways I can never repay. I don't want to imagine a future without you in it." He sank to one knee, opening the box to reveal a simple, beautiful ring. "Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down my face as I nodded, barely able to speak. "Yes, 1,000 times, yes." As Maya clapped and cheered, Gavin slipped the ring onto my finger. The circle was complete. The place where my heart had once been broken was now where it began again.